Hey, Paranormal Triage here. I'm Brenda.
Hey, I'm Ryan. Hey, Keith. Sorry, I see that you made a comment on our live. We had to go out and come back in, so we might have to redo our look us up here.
So this is kind of a last minute live that we decided to do. We don't have a whole lot of time tonight, but if you want to leave some questions in the chat box, you can. What is that?
It's this thing. I got it.
Anyway, so we're not here really to talk about paranormal stuff tonight. In light of everything that's happened the last 2 weeks, I think we're all feeling a whole lot of stuff that we don't understand, or maybe you don't understand. And I've seen quite a few videos of people that have been pretty upset emotionally, people that actually witnessed the event that happened last week. And it's pretty heartbreaking. I was never a follower of Charlie Kirk. I mean, I've watched a few of his videos, but I did not religiously follow him. So I had to go back and watch a few more videos just to, make my own opinions of, what I thought about his content and things of that nature. But the first thing I kind of want to touch on, anybody that follows us knows that we are first responders. And, we had a hard time picking our name, to do our paranormal stuff and things like that. And obviously triage is in our name, and that is a first responder term that we use in the EMS world. And we've had people ask us why we don't do more stories about our calls, our patients. Do we see ghosts? Do we see that? Do we see this? Well, this is a fine example. And I didn't really have an answer for that. I don't know if you did, but I didn't.
No, not really.
I didn't have a good answer because we get a little bit used to the career that we're in, and it's what we do. We don't have to think about it when we're doing our job. So I guess answers don't really come that clear for us, I suppose, for lack of better of explaining that. But this is a fine example of why we don't do EMS in our paranormal shows, or any other show for that matter. I feel really bad that people had to witness something like that. We don't generally witness stuff as it's happening, but we're always there just after the fact. And that's hard enough. We don't need to see it as it's happening. And unfortunately, that's not how this played out. I saw the first video and I was kind of hopeful that Charlie was going to make it, because we've seen them kind of injuries before. And it's like, maybe it didn't hit any vital parts. And then I accidentally saw the second video and it was just something I didn't want to see. And you only get to see a part of that. And for us as first responders, we see the whole entire thing because we are treating these people. We are going to their emergencies. We are, giving medical attention of that nature. So we understand the magnitude of injuries like that. So I'm glad you didn't have to see more of it, because what you saw is enough. And that's pretty traumatizing.
Yeah. It brings up a lot of things, because I think that there's a lot of people out there that are experiencing some similar things. Some of the people that we follow in the social media world, people out there on the street, friends, family, coworkers, all this stuff. Really what it comes down to is there's a lot of people that have been affected by this, no matter what their political affiliation is, whatever, right? And it really hasn't been that long. I mean, it was
it's
been a week,
maybe 7 days.
Yeah. So I think everybody is now experiencing that stuff that we're kind of used to experiencing. But the difference between us is that, at least for me, I wasn't used to experiencing this stuff just based on something I saw, right?
Yeah.
And that was pretty gnarly, pretty graphic. We are the ones that are seeing that stuff after the fact, but we never see,
we don't see it as it's happening.
And shout out to all our brothers and sisters who are combat veterans who have experienced that stuff in real time. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And the whole PTSD or post-traumatic, all that, as first responders, we experience a lot of post-traumatic as well. But the signs and symptoms that fall within that whole traumatic event thing, the reliving it over and over, the images in your head, the disassociation, the trying to figure out where you're at, your mind, and all that kind of thing. And where I was looking it up earlier, and I can't, it's paraphrasing that stuff, but I think a lot of people are experiencing those same things, right? And I'm watching some, posts that some social media people are putting out there that we follow and respect, and I can just hear it in their voice that they are in the same page right now as we are.
Right.
And it's comforting and it sucks at the same time.
Yeah.
Comforting because I know that there's people out there that feel the way we do, but it sucks that we have to feel this way.
Yeah.
And then it brings up a lot of other things to talk about. This is a great country we live in, and there's such a divide right now, and there has been for probably 10, 12 years.
Quite a while.
It's been building and building and building. And I think for me, a lot of this stuff, you see the negative comments about, and it's people's opinion. And, as someone who, I guess I can call myself a constitutionalist, I believe that people have a right to their opinion, but I also believe now that you have a right to reap what you sow based on your opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have a right to say anything that you want, but there's always consequences, and
let me be clear. I don't think that anybody should have any kind of acts of violence acted upon them because of their opinion.
Yeah.
Or their beliefs. You have a right to that, and you have a right for people to disagree with you and argue the points, but nobody has a right to give or receive any kind of violent act.
Yeah, no, not at all. And if you're going to put those comments out there, you're going to get back what you get. I mean, I know a lot of people say that's what Charlie did. Like I said, I had to go back and watch some of his videos because sometimes when you're scrolling and you see these videos in passing and you only hear parts of the surface of what he's talking about, and you can take that, which a lot of people do, and they run with that, and you really have to, if you're going to be engaging with people that like to debate and are strong in their faith and things of that nature, for one, you have to be prepared to receive it. If you don't want to receive it, don't go to those events. But when you receive it or you hear it even in passing, you got to go dig deeper. And I really highly recommend to young people, if you're watching these videos and you're scrolling, and just dig deeper. Don't always jump at that first feel good click, because that's kind of what it is. They're like, whether you want to call them feel good clicks or, I don't know. We're in this day of technology now that we just jump at everything without even thinking about it, and then we're forming opinions or being emotional about something really we know nothing about, because you haven't dug far enough to even understand what those comments or that video was about, whether it's Charlie Kirk or not. There's a ton of people out there making a ton of videos. So for yourself and your own mental well-being, do your homework.
Absolutely. Don't just don't allow yourself to just read what's on the surface. Actually understand what's going on by doing your research about what you see and what you hear.
Yeah, and even in the paranormal world, like with what we do, we're not experts in this field. I am not God. We had some experiences in our life and we chose to share them with the public. We liked history, but by no means are we experts in this field. So you can't take what people present to you as face value. You got to do your own homework and make your, just really, we're all smart. We all have brains,
And this country in the last week has really kind of leaned towards the Christian message.
Yeah.
And that's always been out there. And I think some of us that have been kind of on the fringe edges of that have kind of come back into it in light. The churches have been filled up lately, and Charlie Kirk's message never changed from the beginning of when he went out there. You can go back to the first videos and his debates at college campuses, he doesn't change his thoughts on anything. It's all faith-based,
Yeah.
right? And just because one person wants to say it was hate speech, or one person wants to say it was racist or homophobic or whatever, it's like, really think about what he's saying. Don't just go with what the current narrative is
Yeah.
from somebody else, right? And do I agree with everything he said? No, I don't. But from a faith base, I do, which kind of, at least for us, I mean, for me, that we have in the last, what, 4 or 5 months really been struggling with this whole spirituality,
Yeah.
paranormal, good versus evil, the whole spiritual warfare that I believe that the whole world is under right now.
Yeah, we've been in it for a little bit. For me, I think I recognized that spiritual war before COVID. And that's basically what this is. This isn't about party lines. This isn't about, I guess it's not about labels and party lines. It's bigger than that. This is good versus evil. And it's kind of rearing its ugly head right now.
And I don't think specifically to Charlie Kirk's message when he put out there was actually political in the sense of, what the American Republic stands for in our political system. If you go back into the actual history and do your research, this republic was built and based off of Christian values. The Constitution, Bill of Rights was all written with those words in it. Whether you want to accept that or not, that's the history, that's the fact. And it's more than a political issue. It's a religious issue.
Yeah.
Spiritual.
And bad things have happened all through history. There's no way to go back and change that. The only thing we can do is come together and move forward and just surround each other in love and acceptance, and for most things. Now, I kind of say that lightly because there's a lot of things that I don't agree with right now. But you can't go back and change the past. We can only not repeat the past. And if we try to erase the past, then we forget what we've done in the past. Not us. We weren't there. We weren't alive back then. We didn't do some of those things that have happened, but it is our job to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of bad and negative things that happen under the guise of Christian religion too, right? So you gotta look out for that stuff, right? But how this kind of ties into everything is that we've already been on kind of like this, spiritual journey from the beginning, but it kind of turned into, are we doing the right thing? Is paranormal what we should be doing? What we should be talking about? Going on investigations, using equipment, communicating with spirits, whatever. If you read the Bible, there's some, people that are hard fast on their stance that everything you're doing is evil and you shouldn't be doing that. And there's people that have different valued opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And we are have been toying back and forth and struggling with if what we are doing is the right thing for a while.
Yeah.
We've had, guest on who was struggling with the same thing, and he has turned more of his efforts into the religious side of things and going back to God. And I want to preface that by saying that we've never gone away from God or Christian values, right? I 100% believe in him, but I think where this really plays into, which kind of like the mind game, is how do we go forward with this? How do we move forward? What do we do? And not just the paranormal, but with just our life and everything. And, putting this content out there because it's kind of our way of getting it off our chest, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
What's your opinion on where we stand right now? Where do you think Paranormal Triage as a group, which is basically us, where do we stand on what, so let's talk about some of the stuff we've talked about.
So we got into the paranormal because we wanted to share our experiences. We had some experiences like we shared in the past before. I'm sure half of you already know these stories, but in my mind, I just wanted to know, was there something more out there that we don't understand? And it's not like we want all the answers to everything. It just, it just kind of was, we had these experiences and now we want to know a little bit more or see if this is what we're really, maybe even triage between, is it evil what we're doing or is it good? Is it possible to talk to people after they pass? But like I said, we're not experts in this, and biblically speaking, depending on how you interpret the Bible, yeah, we're doing the wrong thing, but I think it's bigger than that. But I don't want people to hear me because yeah, we're nobodies really. We're not we're not famous. We haven't been doing this very long to where people, we have thousands of followers, but there could be that one person that hears what we say and takes that as 100%. Well, it's not. We're on our journey, so.
And I can tell you that for me, at least on our journey, if you would have asked me, 2 years ago, I would have told you that, yeah, I'm not that worried about, the whole mediumship thing or people that claim to be, good witches or that kind of stuff. But my mind has changed now to where I don't think that is really truly right. And that's not really what God wants you to be leaning on or going towards. Now, with that saying, I still think pursuing the spiritual awakening through doing some investigations and different things from a different light and different standpoint, that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's what I'm struggling with.
And this is just our journey. We're not judging anybody else for doing their journey. That's their journey. It's not for me to change their minds. If they want to listen to what we have to say, that's great. We all should probably be whatever that word is that we don't do.
Copacetic.
Just go out and just talk to people and talk about what God means to you and what life means to you and all that. It's not like we go knock on doors every Sunday and talk about God to people. People that do that, that's great. I kind of look at it as like a tool. Somebody tells me something, I put it in my toolbox and save it for later. It might be relevant, but I'm not going to say everybody's wrong about religion or whatever. I like to listen to people's different opinions.
So paranormal triage, right? We've talked about this before, what paranormal means, what triage means. And initially, our idea was to kind of sort through the facts and sort through the type of paranormal people are experiencing at the investigations that we go to, point out history, how things are relevant, non-relevant. I kind of feel like, when you ask me today, what does paranormal triage mean? I kind of feel like it's triaging more than just paranormal. It's just everything that's surrounded by whatever's going on right now.
Yeah.
Triaging what is, current events, social facts, culture war, whatever. It's all kind of triaging all of that and kind of into the guides of how it relates to spiritualness.
Right.
If that makes any sense. I don't know. It's like that all kind of came to me, earlier today when we decided we were going to come down and do this kind of impromptu live stream.
Yeah. So for me, I think some people go, why are you even talking about this? And why is it even relevant to us? I can kind of relate to Charlie's situation and his wife, because I know what it's like to love somebody and to have people say they should not be on the face of this earth anymore. I'm not going to use the words because we could probably get kicked off the platform, but to have people talk about somebody that you love very much that is really not hurting anybody and wishing ill will on them and or death. And then when you do lose them, which I lost my daughter, and then have people celebrate that. Like, oh, that's one less mentally ill person that we have to deal with. And that's in my own community. It's heartbreaking. I didn't realize how broken some people were until we had gone through my daughter's journey of being mentally ill and being sick and having traumatic events in her own life. And her demons were just bigger than my love. It wasn't a drug issue. That's a whole nother conversation, but her demons were just bigger than my love. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now. We've kind of sat back and we've been complacent and want to get along with people and want to accept them for who they are and what they believe in. But I think we've sat back a little too long and have been a little too quiet and maybe a little too scared to say anything from a very small group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of backed us into a corner. But honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like these people got demons on them. I just do. I feel like that's part of this spiritual war going on, because we're desensitized by technology. We're desensitized by entertainment, whether it's music or movies. We've gotten to that point where, and even in gaming, we've gotten to that point where something traumatic like this happens and you actually witness it and people are like laughing about it because they're desensitized. So this isn't Call of Duty. This isn't Fortnite. This is the real deal. And it has serious consequences. And
I think some of the people, my personal opinion here, I think some of the people that are laughing at that stuff and kind of encouraging those things to happen haven't really had to experience that kind of trauma or discomfort in their life, or they have experienced some crazy trauma and that's their way of coping is just laughing through it. Um, I'm not making excuses for some of the horrible, horrible things that people have said. Um, and you see, it's not just about Charlie. It's not just about the comments people are making about him, but it's about those people at this point, those comments, I feel that they feel that way about anybody that doesn't agree with them.
yeah,
And that's the problem.
yeah,
We have a unique take on the paranormal. And we kind of ride the fine line between the two different worlds of people that just, go extremely biblical with it and people that are very open, whether it's tarot card reading, mediums, that kind of stuff that the Bible clearly says you shouldn't do.
yeah. Ouija
Crystals,
boards.
healing, Ouija boards. We don't do that stuff because we don't believe in it. But we kind of ride that fine line between those two different groups of people. And it's nice for us to be able to be accepted and interact in both of those communities without having to say, oh, well, you just, bad comments from either side.
Yeah,
And that's what we're saying is we want to be able to keep that narrative open and keep going forward with all of that stuff. And we should do that with all the different aspects, not just paranormal in our life.
yeah, yeah. And it just on a human side of it, I feel like that we've really let our children down. It's one thing to have a lifestyle, but it's another thing to lie to children and not make sure that they are growing up loving them for how they were made, how the shell that God gave them, the uniqueness that they are, just what they were when they were born. Like I said, there's two different things. Lifestyle's different from, convincing a child that they should mutilate themselves, and we see it all the time. It's hard because we see it, we see it on the ambulance or, on the calls that we go on, and the majority of people, for some reason, decided that they weren't good enough in how they were, really struggle. It's not as happy as everybody wants to make it out to be. There's some people that can want to change what they are aesthetically, but physically you're not any different than you were when you were born. You can change your aesthetics, but that really plays with their mental health, and we see it all the time. I mean, and I'm not
you can go under the scalpel to fix the way you look. We've got so many different technologies and advances. You can change the person you are on the outside, right? But you can't, there is no plastic surgery for your brain.
Yeah.
You can't change the way your brain is and how your DNA is wired. And it's almost like we've forgotten to accept people the way they are, and to the point to where we want people have to change themselves.
Yeah.
And they think that by changing the outside of them, they're going to change the inside of them. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of my thoughts on that specific subject.
Yeah, and it's really just sad to watch this unfold because this is part of that bigger picture. This is just one aspect of what's going on in the world. It's just one aspect. And how do you wrangle all this back together? I don't know what that answer is. Get right by whatever God looks like to you. Talk to people that you trust. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pastor or anything like that. Just somebody that you can trust that actually is common sense. Quit watching the news. Quit watching mainstream news on all parts of it, because you need, like I said, you have your own brain. Go talk to real people like us that do these podcasts, that have life experience, that have experienced a lot of this stuff or witnessed it or treated it. Those are the people you want to talk to. You don't want to talk to the media. They're just kind of maybe they don't even know that they're brainwashing you, but you hear that enough every day. Newscaster after newscaster saying the same thing over and over.
And that doesn't matter what side of the political opinion you are.
Both sides.
Both sides do the same thing, right? Now, I do want to say that I do believe that there's one side that pushes a little bit more violence than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not what I'm talking about as far as both sides do it. What I'm talking about is the echo chamber and, rinse and repeat of the news.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care if you're turning on a mainstream network or you're turning on like a cable thing, whichever side you want to talk about, whether you're talking about conservative or liberal, right? Um, you go from one newscaster to the other and it's the same stories over and over and it's the same essential take.
Yeah.
Right, with a small little twist of personal opinion from each one of those people, right? But the reading points are the same, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Right, because the whole idea is to put the information out there, build some knowledge, and form your own opinions. You are a unique individual, unique person, form some opinions.
Yeah.
And it's okay to differ.
Yeah, we're all guilty of jumping on that bandwagon. It's easy to do. It's easier to jump on the evil bandwagon than it is to stay centered. I don't know why that is. It's easier to jump on those bandwagons because you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. It takes a little more work to be centered, but that's what you want. You want to be centered, or you're going to get lost in all this. And the world's lost right now. How do we rein that back in? I don't know. Get rid of technology. Get rid of a portion of the technology. Unplug from Facebook. Unplug from Twitter. Not Twitter.
Yeah,
Twitter.
it's kind of weird because we're telling you to unplug from it, but yet we're talking on it, right? So sometimes there is no way to get out to people other than this, right? And we're pretty fortunate we can sit here and get this out there. And we're not doing this for clicks. I don't care how many people click it and watch it. If one person watches it and agrees with us, great. If they disagree, whatever.
Yeah. I think like when I was younger, we didn't have all this technology. So we socialized face to face. And we all know as young people, we want to fit into some kind of group so bad, because we want to be a part of something that we're willing to sacrifice everything for it. Everything. What you like. We're willing to follow whoever when we're young because we want to be a part of something so bad. And, if you're just feeling like you're not cool enough or you're not that kid that's involved in sports, I think we failed as people of not keeping our kids grounded in real life.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse every day. You see these apps now about, here, I can be your robot friend and I'll comfort you. And how scary is that? Here, I'll date you. My name's Frank. It's just like so easy to jump onto that because for one, it's like a video game, but then it's very easy to get personal with something that's not real. Because the world is lost. I think, we've lost that face-to-face socializing. Kids don't get out as much. Most families can't afford to do the community sports and stuff like that. So they're left at home to play games and scroll. I'm guilty of it,
So what does that mean? Where do we go from here? Like, how do we go forward with everything? Now we've talked about a little bit of everything, alluded to a little bit of everything, but what does it mean for us in our personal life? What does it mean for paranormal triage? That's still like the big question.
We're going to move forward. We have some podcasts that are going to talk about why people do what they do and how they feel about, Bible verses and how that relates to them and, just get different thoughts and ideas about what that means to them. So we're still going to keep doing that. We'll probably still do investigations because we're still on this journey. I don't think it's going to end today or tomorrow. My biggest thing right now is I'm really concerned about people in the community. You guys are all you have that empty feeling and it's a little bit bigger than the normal feeling. And people are like, I don't even know how to describe this feeling that I'm feeling. We're aware of it, but even for us, it's a little bit deeper because, we don't see these things in action. So my advice to you is if you're having a hard time with it, please go talk to somebody, reach out to us. We're more than willing to talk.
Send us a message. Anybody.
We're willing to talk about anything. We've had some people put some pretty not so great posts on my Facebook and I did remove them because I don't want to see it. It's depressing. I would rather talk to you and hear your opinion opposed to you being so kind of foul for lack of better words. I'm not into watching people die. That's my work. I don't want to see more people die. And I don't want to hear people talk about people, I wish you would die and go away and this and that. It makes, our job no fun anymore. It just makes not being on the internet fun anymore. We kind of did this just to kind of get out of the real world and dive into something that we weren't really used to diving into, so.
I would really hope that people kind of look inside themselves, because as we live our lives, we shouldn't have so much anger and hate towards anybody, no matter what their opinions are.
Yeah.
And that's time for some self-reflection and some internalizing of your own thoughts before you really put some of that hateful energy out there.
And just stop letting politics make you out to be a victim. So I'm just going to be straightforward about how I feel about this, because I think it's important. I feel like that one side more than the other has bastardized words like racism, white supremacist, homophobic. I mean, phobia, that's kind of like, do you even know what the definition of phobia is? That means you are so scared of something, you are unable to interact with it, period. So you're taking these terms and you're giving them a whole different meaning, which that's not even what they're for, but you bastardized these words so much that now everybody's using them, and then all these young people are hearing it. And then like, oh, well, that must be what they are because that's what everybody's saying. We didn't live in times of real war. Us now have never been in a real war. We weren't here for World War I. We weren't here for the Civil War. We weren't here when Indians were, being slaughtered. We weren't here for any of that. We weren't here for Germany and the Nazis and stuff like that. Real Nazis, people that actually were taking people and torturing them and killing them and doing horrible things. So the fact that we're throwing those terms around like it's nothing, don't insult people that have actually been through it. And that's the problem. Just because we have a different opinion, or we live our life a certain way and you live your life a certain way, and we may not agree on that, doesn't mean you get to loosely use those terms, because look at what it's creating. Look what I've even been called a racist. I'm farthest from that. My nephew's black. I'm the farthest thing from a racist, but I've been called that multiple times. So, I mean, where do we go from here? Stop using those words. Start doing your own homework.
Part of the problem is that the people that really are the vile people that are truly racist, and the vile people that are truly all those words, those people, that the extent of how bad they really are is going to be downplayed now. And that's part of the problem too, because the people that really are, those types of people, they're really bad. And now we're kind of downplaying it because now all of a sudden everybody falls in that category. And they don't, right? So the ones that are really like that, that's not good, because now we're kind of downplaying how bad they really are too.
Yeah, we were watching somebody else's podcast today, and somebody I don't really follow, but he made sense. It's like, stop feeding the monster. Who's my favorite actor? It's the black actor. What did he say? He was doing an interview, and they were talking about white and black. And, of course, the white interview is going, how do we fix racism? And he's like, well, stop talking about it. He goes, I won't call you a white man. You don't call me a black man. What is this? He's my favorite
it's
actor.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. I love that man. I think, he hit the nail on the head. Stop using, and it's not like he's saying don't talk about stuff. He's saying don't talk about that in those terms, like racism, white supremacist, racist, all that. Stop using those words and start actually having conversations like caring, smart, thoughtful people. We can do it. We just have to choose to do it.
We're all human beings. We're the same in that front. Just because we look different doesn't make us different. But the ideas that we spread, whether they're good or bad, can make us different. So let's start spreading good ideas. Let's start spreading positive things. And let's accept people for who they are and invite them into the community so we can do the things we like to do with everybody.
Yeah. And maybe some of these young people will heal. Maybe they'll find I just feel like they're lost, and they don't dream anymore. They don't feel like they have nothing to reach for or no goals to set. It's kids forgot to look to the future about what they might want to be, and it's our job to bring that back in,
Absolutely.
God gave us the biggest responsibility, and that's not only serving God, but taking care of his children. He gave us the gift of being able to procreate, and it's our job and our responsibility to make sure they're taken care of, and we haven't done that.
Yeah.
Not as a whole, we haven't done that, But we got to stop using foul language, and we have to start actually communicating like real people, like real human beings with hearts, and you're not going to fix people that are just totally against it. That's going to be their battle, but stop feeding that monster. Easier said than done, but I really feel for Charlie's family. I feel for his kids, and that they had to witness something like that. And I'm sorry that people had to witness that. And I wish I could hug them all, because it's a shitty feeling. It's a shitty feeling. I'm not going to lie. It's taken me a whole week to just try to get my head straight again, because obviously it's triggering for me. I hate that word, but it's the truth. We've all been having a really hard time coming to terms with this, but that's what those people want. That's what those demons want. They want us to be non-functionable, and now's not the time to be non-functional. We just have to do what's right.
Absolutely.
So there's no right words for any of this, and we're probably just rambling, but hopefully somebody got something out of it. And I mean, I hope people still follow us and still kind of follow along our journey, and whatever that looks like and wherever it leads to. But if you don't,
we're going to continue to do what we do, continue to share our kind of confusing journey with our pursuing the spiritual awakening through all of our stuff and our paranormal triage. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we're back into our original studio.
We left and now we're back.
So our other studio was just the climate control wasn't working. So awesome place, but now we're back. So
yeah, we're not dying of heat exhaustion. So
maybe we finish it off here, and then I don't know why this is. I just feel like I need to say this, but it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, but God loves you. So remember to love yourself and love your neighbors.
And if you need anybody to talk to, please reach out to us, because we do understand. So yeah, we're all in this together.
All right.
All right. We'll see you later. Toodles.